Hello everyone, this is Armstrong Williams on the right side. Armstrong. Don't curse, speak English. Armstrong. Virtuous society. Armstrong. I dare you to listen. Hey, turn it up. Hey. Armstrong. Get on the right side. Armstrong. Elevate your mind. Armstrong. I'm Armstrong Williams on the right side. Armstrong. Yo, man, it's your boy K.O. And you're tuned into the most conservative of our brothers. Armstrong. The Armstrong Williams Show. Please give me a break. Grow up. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Obviously, I have strong feelings about education in America and about how we are to be educated. So much about education has changed. Something that I just think is just obvious common sense, but you cannot always assume that society has a modicum of common sense. Growing up in the Williams home in the 70s, we had a two-parent household. Not only did our parents read to us, we had to read to our parents. And the library was also our best friend. And there was no such thing that parents could not view the child's report card to see how the children were excelling in classrooms, and if they were not, making sure that you found somebody in the community to make sure you helped them in wherever they were lacking in terms of whether it was history, math, science, or economics. When I talk about education, I think one of the people that I just have so much respect for on this subject and who's just very prolific is someone that I have great admiration for and just a giant in the field of education, and probably someone that many have not heard of because she loves being under the radar screen, but she loves education. We talked to her before in the past, and I'll never forget the many emails and phone calls that we received as a result of the show. But I want to welcome back my very good friend and a friend of education, Ann Bernanke. Ms. Bernanke, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me on.
What is an education in today's society with the internet? You can get your degree online. So much about education has changed since the time that we've come along.
There are a lot of advantages to the internet in terms of exposing students to things they might not otherwise be able to see or experience in a regular classroom. But really, I think that education fundamentally shouldn't change from what it should always have been, which is developing a relationship with adults who care about an entire individual and want to help that individual become the best person he or she can be. To me, that is the essence of what education should be.
How important that in that education that you instill values and virtue in the child?
It is fundamental to having a well-educated society to make sure that a child is not only getting information, but is being guided as to how that information affects their own life and how they can use that information in order to guide their own decisions personally, both even as young children and certainly as later as adults.
Talk about your background growing up with your parents and their emphasis on education. Tell us more about you.
My parents are Holocaust survivors. They were newlyweds when the Nazis were invading their home country of Yugoslavia. They escaped over the Alps into Italy, and they survived the war through the kindness of people in Italy who fed and clothed them and gave them opportunities to earn a minor kind of living. They lived in Italy for 13 years. I was born there, and my brother as well. And then they emigrated from Italy to the United States and settled in Denver, where I grew up. And we had, as a family, but also as a culture, a strong emphasis on the meaning of education and the ability of education to, in many ways, dominate and save your life.
Coming from a place like that, understanding your history and the strife of your parents, obviously they emphasized that you had to maximize not just the best of the education, but reading was very important, not just what was given to you in the classroom.
Oh, there's no doubt that reading for me was a magical experience because it was able to take me away from my present and put me into situations that I could not have lived. And it also affected me very much emotionally. I remember so clearly that one of the first books I read that made me cry was Charlotte's Web. And the power of words to affect your thought process and your emotions is something magical that nothing else can produce. No video game, no internet connection can be a substitute for the words, the poetry, the magic of a story that can transport you in every possible way to a new level of understanding yourself.
And how important is it, when you talked about the magical experience, the fantastical experience, because those words, those readings, those authors took you to unimaginable places and to history and events and situations that was shaping you when you really did not even realize it. You had gone places that you eventually went to in a physical form that you had already visited, and you could feel that still in your spirit, what you read versus what you experienced.
Absolutely. The idea of expanding your own knowledge through reading is an experience that no one else can do for you. One of the beauties of education is that no one can take it away from you, and that no one can twist your education for you in any other way than the way you choose to use and have that information at your disposal. So your point about reading is, I think, on the one hand, essential to a good education because it expands you in ways that you cannot otherwise have. You may have all kinds of limitations, whether they be physical or financial, to go to other places. But the ability to experience something different in a book is right there. It's literally at your fingertips, and it's in your mind. I do believe that we have lost some of that beauty of reading in education nowadays, and I do also believe that there are ways to get it back.
How do we get, particularly with us moving toward a more technological society, how do we get people more excited and interested in the maths and the sciences?
There are lots of different ways to get people excited about it, but I think the most important thing is to have them have an experience where they can see that math or science is relevant to their own lives. One way that you can do that, it sounds kind of mundane, but it's interesting, is to have the math be relevant to shopping and having people understand what a budget means, and having people estimate if they have a particular budget and they need to buy a certain amount of things, how are they going to reach the goal of what they want given what they have available. And that's a very practical, everyday kind of math. And I've done it with students where I take them out and I have them weigh fruit and figure out how much is the fruit per pound and how many pounds do they have, and then estimate, how much that would cost. The other way that's more theoretical but kind of exciting is for them to follow the stock market. And one way we got students really excited about looking at percentages and looking at ways that profits and stocks are calculated is to take students, allow them to invest a hypothetical $10,000 in various stocks of their choice, and then every week or two checking those stocks and seeing what's happened and determining, how much they have made or how much they have lost, what percentage return they've made on that investment. They really enjoy that.
And obviously you begin to see these kids come to life.
Yes. There's no better feeling in the world than to see young people excited about some kind of academic endeavor that maybe in the past was like, I don't want to do that. And suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, Apple went up 5 points.
Apple. That's very interesting. That's quite intriguing because they begin to see it as a game. And they get caught up in the game, and it's not so much that they're focusing on the math itself, they're focusing on playing a game and winning and conquering that game.
Absolutely. And in some ways, I think that we have come to a point in education where, because we have other realities like the games, the internet games, the video games, we do have to put it in a context where the kids, can relate to it. And if they relate to it, they get excited about it. They can even get excited about reading. We were reading some books this year that were historical fiction. And they were well-researched books that took actual events and created characters living within a certain time frame and talking about how it would have been to live in that time frame and how this character treated other people within the story, brought that story of a colonial period to life. And the kids got so excited about knowing what would happen next to this character that one day we had to spend almost the entire day reading the book because they couldn't stop wanting to know what happened.
Well, Anne Bernanke is our guest. She's an educator. I'm Armstrong Williams. You can always email us at info@rightsidewire.com. We'll be back with much more. This is our In Profile guest, Anne Bernanke. Don't go away.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
For more information on The Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933. Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Ms. Bernanke, when you think about all the money that we spend on education, we're so far behind in terms of the global education economy and what other countries are doing in terms of how they're performing on these standardized tests and what they're producing. You know, I've always most come to the conclusion is that money doesn't always equate to a better education. I mean, obviously there's something that's missing as to why kids were able to learn in the 1800s far greater than they were able to learn in the current century that we're in now. What has gone wrong, and what can we do to right this ship?
That's a very deep question that I spend lots and lots of time thinking about. I think a lot of things are playing a role. One of them is that other countries have perhaps a more homogeneous culture, and a culture where it's expected that everyone will perform at a particular level, where the family and the society expect certain kinds of excellence, and if those levels are not achieved, then the child or the family are dishonored. I'm thinking in particular of Asian cultures where this is a family tradition that is carried on from centuries ago. The beauty of America is that we have such a wide variety of cultures and backgrounds, and that is also one of the pieces that makes it more difficult on some level, because here we are trying to create a culture, a common culture from amongst many, many different groups, and that can be a problem. I think the way that we can, as you say, right this ship is to understand that fundamentally parents love their children, that parents want the best for their children, and that sometimes there are challenges or obstacles for parents to find the right options for their children because there are either financial or educational lack of resources. I also feel that as a society we have really fallen down on holding parents and the community accountable for the health and education of their children. And we have somehow convinced ourselves that teachers can work a miracle regardless of where a child comes from, regardless of whether that child is well fed, regardless of whatever other difficulties that child faces outside of the schoolroom. The school is responsible, the teacher is responsible, and I think that we've just lost sight of the fact that parents are responsible, that the community is responsible, and that we all share collectively the responsibility of helping these children find the best path for themselves. And if we keep on absolving other people of that responsibility, then I think we burden ourselves with an absolutely untenable situation.
So what happened in the Bernanke home to prepare your children to have the best chance at accelerating to the top of the class in all subjects, not being a challenge for the teachers because the children came prepared, and in many ways the children were ahead of their own grade? How does a parent, and I want to use your household for you and your husband, how did you prepare your children for the educational experience early on?
You know, you say that our children were ahead of the curve. I'm not sure that's true. I think every child...
ahead of the curve can take on many meanings.
Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead.
All right.
But because even in your statement, you can imply that maybe you should have done things differently, which our audience can still learn from. Because the best teacher is those that have already experienced it. You've gone before, so please.
Well, okay, number one, being a parent is a very humbling experience, because when you have children, you have certain hopes and wishes and visions of how your parenting is going to go and what kind of children you're going to have and how there will be no sibling rivalry in your family. And, of course, once you have the children, the reality is, you know, that they're not exactly what you thought you were going to get. So you have to learn how to deal with each child individually and to understand where they're coming from. We did read with them. We took them a lot of different places. We certainly set examples for them through our own professional and personal goals. Something I always wanted to emphasize to my children was that to be an educated human being meant to be a person who knows how to respect others, regardless of where they come from, and not to judge anyone based on superficial information, such as where they went to school, where they live, or what their family background is. And I think as a parent, I'm most proud of the fact that my children have a strong respect for all kinds of people that they've met in their lives and who are able to see worthwhile strengths in anyone. For themselves, we worked a lot on the fact that our kids felt that they had to be perfect and that anything less than perfection was a failure. And it was something that as a parent, I had to keep emphasizing to them, no, when you fail, you learn. Failing is an important experience in life. Knowing that you have limitations is important. Knowing where your strengths are is important. And ultimately, finding what you want to do that fulfills you emotionally, spiritually, if you have it, is just as important as what is in terms of the educational level. Is it a PhD? Does it have to be? No, it does not. And eventually, I think we had to let our children find their own path, and we supported them every step along the way. Whatever we could do to help them achieve that, we as parents tried to do that. But ultimately, they're responsible now for their own lives.
But still, what you're not answering is some parents talk about the fact that they read to their child when they're in their womb. Mm-hmm. They play music. There's certain kinds of games they only want to expose their children to that can enhance their educational IQ at an early age, because we know the intellectual gap for children in education starts before they ever reach kindergarten. I'm talking about the things that you were able to instill in them before they became rebellious, independent in their own minds, those critical years.
So you're looking at, I just want to make sure I'm clear on your question. You're looking at younger between like birth
before
and
they
5?
even get to kindergarten.
Yes. Before that.
Oh, yes, of course. Because I think that's where you have the greatest influence.
Well, certainly that seems to be the case. The evidence shows that those first 5 years are really, really important. One of the most important things that you can do for a child is to give that child one-on-one time. I made a choice to stay home with our children. Not all parents can do that. But having some time put aside so that you can spend that time with the child, whether it's in the evenings, whether it's on weekends, whether it's on your day off, I think nothing is more powerful than a bond between a parent and a child. And Mr. Williams, you might say it has to be a two-parent household. I'm going to first say the reality is that there are not as many two-parent households as we would like, perhaps. I would also say that the power of a bond between a parent and a child can be between one parent and the child, as long as that child has a very strong, positive, supportive, loving relationship with a parent and other family members, be they grandparents or aunts and uncles or even big sisters or brothers. There has to be contact with other caring, loving individuals who, you can say we read to them, you can say we took them places, which we did. We exposed them to a variety of circumstances, taking them out of the home, taking them on trips, taking them to parks and museums. But I think most fundamentally, everyone can give their time and their love to a child, and it has to be positive and supportive and encouraging and nurturing. And if you give that, then you give the child a sense of security that they bring with them to the rest of what they do in their life.
What do you say? You talk about the single-parent households that you alluded to. What happens when these babies end up having babies? And oftentimes these babies who are babies themselves having kids don't have an education. They can't really teach their children. And so therefore the children are in many ways are very vulnerable in the household. Where does that child find that missing piece to the education puzzle. And that's realistic.
I think that's realistic, and yet, to play devil's advocate, I would say I've met a lot of parents who might not have as much education.
But common sense.
But common sense,
Yeah.
and loving your child can still do a lot to make up for that. I do think that the role of education, and the more I live and experience the different realities that people are struggling with nowadays, I have two things that I want to comment on. One is that you would be, I think, pleasantly surprised to hear of, I've dealt with parents who were teenaged parents who very, very much want something different and better for their own child. They understand the value of what they did not perhaps get, but they don't always have the means to find an alternative. If you are not educated, you cannot homeschool your child because you don't have the requisite educational background to do that. And if you don't have financial resources, it's very difficult to find a school where you can put your child and you can get a full ride or a scholarship. And for those few families who do so, there are many more who want it. So I do think that there's a role for public education to provide a community anchor whereby parents and young children...
Hold that point. Ann Bernanke is our guest. We'll be back.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933. Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Now, Mrs. Bernanke, you touched on a very hotly debated subject in this country. You were getting into balancing public and private education. Obviously, there's some very good public schools in this country, but you have to target them. You have to pick them. And yet, you have this voucher movement where kids are not getting the best. Their parents feel that way, and they want to put them in a school where they can get that. But continue what you're discussing, but talk about balancing public and private education, because you know what? public education should be, if not just as good, but better than a private education, given the resources that are put in these different districts around the country.
Absolutely, and I think the potential is there. There is interest. There is a desire, I think, and a commitment from all elements of public schools to want very much to do right by their communities and by their children. I don't doubt for a second the dedication, commitment, and passion that most of our educators and administrators bring to the table to help our public schools. I don't doubt that for a second. I do think that we have lost sight of some fundamental pieces that somehow need to find their way back to the discussion table of how best to use our resources that we do have and how best to embrace the families and the communities in order to create a more equitable sense of accountability and commitment to our youth. And that's where I think public schools might want to reconsider, particularly public schools that are suffering from what we would call a lack of performance on standardized tests. We need to look at the whole child, and if we look at a whole child, we cannot disregard the child's family, the dedication that those parents have, but maybe they need some help. Maybe they need guidance or financial literacy support or some kind of social services, and they don't always know how to get it or have a means for finding some of those answers. And to me, a public school could be a community anchor where the community as a whole can come for betterment, for opportunities, for ways in which the whole community can improve. And there is a school in the District of Columbia that's a, quote, community school. It's the J.C. Knoll School, and they are a community school where if a parent needs help to find a job or if a parent needs some kind of medical help, that community school is one resource for them. And if you make those resources more available, I think you will find a more positive partner kind of feeling. And that's what we need. We need to be partners in educating our youth and embracing the families and the people who love them.
But what are you partnering in that's going to improve education from its current level? Because some of these partnerships in the past have not generated the best results for these kids.
Partnerships can take on very different roles. What I have found always is that parents who want something better for their child are always eager to find ways in which they can participate. If a child sees his or her parent also participating, if the parent is involved in helping at the school, the parents sometimes feel that they have nothing to offer. We need to help parents feel empowered, that whatever skill they can bring to the table, that skill is valuable, and that there are ways in which that skill can be put to use for the betterment of their own life and for the betterment of their child. Not taking outside organizations and bringing them in and imposing what they want onto the public, but rather having the community and the parental units coming into the community and the school as a way to better themselves and their children. I don't think that outside communities imposing something is the way to go.
What are your thoughts on school uniforms?
I have conflicting thoughts about school uniforms. There's something very egalitarian about them, and it makes getting dressed for school and finding, what are you going to wear, and maybe even financially, it's a relief because you don't have to have too many selections. You have the shirt or the pants and the skirt, and that's all you've got. So on that level, I think that it's great because it does put people on an even playing field. On the other hand, I think that we are not empowering our children with enough responsibility to learn how to choose not only what they wear, but how they behave in different situations, so that a child isn't necessarily then learning, oh, well, I'm not going to wear my midriff-bearing shirt to school because that's not the appropriate place to wear it. So I worry that by taking away choice, we're not teaching them how to differentiate between what they need to wear in different situations.
What about this false self-esteem in school now that's permeating the classroom, where you pass kids because you don't want them to think they're a failure, so you just pass them? Imagine what the outcome of that will be when they face the reality of life.
Absolutely not. I agree with you 100% that we are passing students for the sake of passing. One of my more radical thoughts is that I don't believe in grades in a grade level. I think that a child is where they are in their skill set and in their ability. And the goal for school should be you take a child who begins the school year at point A, and if they're 10 and they're at point A, and when they finish the school year they're at point B, then they've made progress. What we want for them to do is to make progress in the right direction. Every child learns differently. Every child comes to school with a different skill set, depending on where they've been before that. I don't feel that saying, well, you're 10, therefore you have to be in third grade. I personally don't think that that's the right way to approach learning. I think we have to learn that every child is going to be different, and we want to help that child go as far as they can within their own developmental stages, whatever those are. And therefore, this imposed idea of a 10-year-old has to be like this is actually detrimental, because it makes everybody fit an average that in reality is not necessarily indicative of any of that group of 10-year-olds, but sort of an averaged mediocre level that hurts more than helps anyone.
You know so much about education. What is it that you felt strongly about before regarding the educational experience that not only you have reservations now, that you would totally change and advocate something different?
That I thought about before?
No, that you believed in before in terms of a child being educated and a child learning, but you just totally radically changed your mind about it. Because part of maturity, part of growth is being able to say, you know what, this doesn't work anymore. As fiercely as much as I've invested in it, it's not working for these kids. We need to do something different.
That's a really interesting question, and that's a question that never stops being asked by a really good educator. Because if you get to the point that you're complacent about what you do, then chances are you've pretty much finished learning as an educator. And I think that if you don't continue to ask that question, you might miss out on other ways to help your students. But what I really felt strongly about was fitting into a certain kind of vision of what good education looked like. I myself was a perfect student. I was very quiet. I raised my hand. I didn't speak out of turn. I was able to sit still. I was able to sit quietly and fill out worksheets. And I looked like a model student. When I became a teacher, I felt that that's what my classes ought to look like. And what I discovered was that, first of all, for me as an individual and as my own person, that didn't suit my style. I thought that I should be this very strict, very competent person sort of dominating the classroom, and it wasn't me. Number one, it wasn't me. My personality was not like that. Secondly, I realized that quiet, being still and filling out worksheets image, which I always thought was what I should aspire to, wasn't serving my students. And I began to realize even instinctively, without reading Bloom's taxonomy and all these other pedagogical studies that have since come out, was seeing that kids needed to touch, to taste, to sense, to feel, to be active. So for me, what I turned around was I realized that having my kids be completely silent wasn't necessarily a sign of good teaching, and having them be seated all the time was not necessarily a sign of good teaching. And allowing them, actually, I've had students who learn best when they're physically active. They have to be moving. And so nowadays, the classroom that I thought I should have, the quiet, studious classroom with everyone hunkered down on their desk, feverishly writing everything down, has changed to let's have a room that looks much more active, open, and in some ways, for some people, it would look chaotic. But I think that serves better the kids that I have.
Why do some kids learn better than others? What is the secret? We're going to talk about this. Boy, time is flying. We have only one segment left. Anne Bernanke is our guest. She's in the studio. Info at rightsidewire.com. We'll be back.
Hello, my name is Ron Moulton. I'm running as a Republican for the City Council in the nation's capital, a political arena dominated by the Democratic Party. I'm seeking office in Ward 7, overwhelmed by unemployment and poverty. For the first time in decades, we have an opportunity to be elected as the people that need the representation the most are now responding to the principles that will uplift them. For more information about my values and to donate, please visit www.ronmoulton.com.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com. Travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong-Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
This is really the magical, but probably the easiest question you will ever answer in your life. Why is it that some children learn better than others? They can pick up on the science, the math. Some of us call it genius. We just call it whatever. But some kids have the ability to adapt, to learn. It doesn't matter what their background is. Parents may not have been educated. They may have been in a foster home, but there's just something there that separates that child from everyone else. What is it, and how do others model it?
That's not an easy question at all. I think that's a really tough question to answer. First of all, I believe that every child has gifts, and sometimes those gifts are untapped.
But are those gifts equal?
No.
They're not.
They're not equal, but they shouldn't be.
And do choices that we make and what people tell us and what we believe also impacts that child's self-esteem and the ability to believe that they can conquer anything, even their greatest fears.
Absolutely. And I do have a friend who has overcome really difficult circumstances, and I asked him because he comes from a poor family, siblings did not do well in their lives, and he has done well. And his claim was it was his mother. And at the same time, I said, but it was the same mother for your siblings. So what was the difference? And the difference was that somehow he had a stronger belief in what he was told than his siblings. But that's not a very complete answer.
No, it's more than that, Ms. Bernanke. It's much more than that. Listen, you and I come from probably similar backgrounds. We come from affluent households, no poverty. I mean, my parents we were very blessed growing up. My parents paid my education through college and anybody else who wanted to go. But no matter what we had growing up or whether we had much less growing up, there's a certain discipline, a certain work ethic. There's something that you've got to put into that trumpet. Whatever you put in that trumpet is exactly what you're going to get out of it. It doesn't matter what your parents tell you. There's a certain amount of sacrifices that you must make to study, to read, and to be prepared. And to be inquisitive, to ask questions of your parents or the teacher or anyone else that may be necessary if you feel there's something that's challenging you in the classroom. Because what we forget sometimes is that so much of success, really, when it's all said and done, falls on the child and not the parent.
I agree with that. I agree that children have in some ways really become very passive about themselves, and that is an epidemic, I think, that in part I will say that there are more opportunities now for a child to be passive than in the past, and it's partly the technology. Answers are at your fingertips. You don't have to even, I used to go get the encyclopedia when I wanted to look something up. Nowadays, I just look it up on, the Wikipedia. So there's something to be said for coming into a different time where being forced to do things on your own is less and less. And the public school systems do put so much emphasis on teachers doing all this work that we do, as a society, we are absolving individuals of their responsibility. So I think we're going back to the same question on some level: is how do we have to bring accountability back to a bigger group of individuals. We cannot burden teachers with the only job of teaching our kids, because we cannot motivate those children. That does have to come from a self-motivated kind of approach. And I think that it's a serious question that we as a society have to ask ourselves about individual accountability and finding ways to bring that back to the table, because as you pointed out, I think it's lacking. And I think that unless we find a way to bring that individual accountability back as to the whole society, we will miss out on kids who might otherwise be that creative, inquisitive person, but who have been in some ways conditioned to be too passive about their own lives.
You know, you must have control aggression, but it's not just in the classroom. Mm-hmm. If you look at the kids that are ambitious, who believe in themselves, they're the kind of kids who are willing to drop out of Harvard and start Facebook or Microsoft or whatever. They're the same kids. Dropping out is not a failure for them, but they just feel there's something better for them. And people look at it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Those are the same kids that had the education and the discipline and capacity to get in Harvard in the first place. But they realized there was something in them that they could do better, and they had the boldness to drop out. Where do we find that in our kids these days?
You asked a very tough question, which is why I love sparring with you on these questions. I don't know that you can say that all kids should have that. I think that there's always been outliers.
How about the majority of us? And then the others are in the minority. Why not the best kids being in the majority, and the things that we rail against, they're in the minority? Well, why not the day when instead of railing against the rich class because the majority of people are wealthy. We have less to rail against because those that have less are really the minority in society. Why not model those which do well, who make the sacrifices, have the discipline, who keep their marriages together despite all the problems, keep their children together? Why is it that not the model for us? Instead of showing us the worst, making us feel sorry for them, and as if that is the model for the day. But that is not the model. Not if you understand what success and sacrifice and discipline and hard work and also moral striving. Let's talk about moral striving. Let's talk about trying to be good.
Right. Again, yes, I don't disagree with any of those statements about moral striving and the idea of being a good person. And again, I think that we have a role to play. Then those people who have those models, who are those examples, let's think seriously about who, as a society, do we idolize, and let's look at what do they have that we idolize. And I think that we can clarify that in many different ways. One thing that is across the board is that they make money. I don't think any child would want to say, oh no, I'd rather be poor. But then there are different ways to do that.
Yeah, but they also lose that money because it's fleeting.
That's true.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay, but then again, we're talking about what do you keep? What do you have that is always yours? What you have that is always yours is your own education, your own values, your own way of doing it. Look at people who fail. And also we have to get away from this fear of failure. Sometimes we have created a society where taking a risk and failing is so untenable that we would rather not even try. And I think that what we have to do is create a system where taking a risk is, and even failing at that, is looked as a positive thing, as an opportunity, and not as a failure.
You know, this time is flying by. We have about 4 minutes left. Talk about you in education, how you would like to see a school, a school that is thriving, where kids can learn, and it's not being disrupted by some bureaucracy and somebody else's agenda.
That would be lovely. I would love to have that opportunity. The ideal school is a school that is no longer shackled by well-intentioned but sometimes misguided goals. We are very guided by test scores, and I'm sure that test scores are important, but we need to broaden our scope. We need to open our arms. We need to embrace each other as members of a community. We need to welcome parents. We need to welcome parents into the school. We need to welcome the community into the school. We need to have the school be a place where it is safe for every child to come, a place where every day they know that they are cared about, that they are accepted, that they are seen as a whole human being, not just a test score, where teachers are considered partners with a parent, where there is no sense of antagonism between the community and the school, where we all have a picture that the child is at the center of our universe and that all of us rotate around it together to help that child become the best person he or she can be. I think it's possible. I have worked with parents. I have worked with teachers. I know how dedicated teachers are. They need support. They need freedom to be creative. They need to be, in some ways, liberated from only one criterion of success. And if we just allow all the best parts of us to come together to help our youth find the best in themselves, then we have done what we need to do for a better future. That's my hope.
How do you want to play a role in that?
I would like to be the first one to open my arms and welcome everybody into an environment that is going to stress respect and provide a safe place for everyone to feel that they have something to offer and something that can be respected and appreciated no matter who or what the circumstances are for these parents and their children.
Perfect timing. Thank you so much for joining us, Ann Bernanke. You're always provocative, intellectual, but you understand the needs of children and what it must take to educate them so we can save our country from crumbling. I'm Armstrong Williams. Have a blessed day.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Hello, my name is Ron Moulton. I'm running as a Republican for the City Council in the nation's capital, a political arena dominated by the Democratic Party. I'm seeking office in Ward 7, overwhelmed by unemployment and poverty. For the first time in decades, we have an opportunity to be elected as the people that need the representation the most are now responding to the principles that will uplift them. For more information about my values and to donate, please visit www.ronmoulton.com.
For more information on The Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org. Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
The sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get the Henrys at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856. Get soul food. Henry's Soul